This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Welcome, Alphas. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show for you today. We'll be joined by retired Army Command Sgt. Major Bart E. Womack. His 29-year career culminated in dual roles as Commandant of the 101st Airborne Division and the other 100, who knows what happened to those guys,
Who knows?
at NCO Academy, and as the 101st Airborne Division Command Sergeant Major. After service, he went to Hollywood, which is, they made fun of us when, as corpsmen, you can be on the East Coast or the West Coast, and they call you Hollywood corpsmen. But really, the difference is, do you want to climb hills or do you want bugs? Like, that's the two differences between.
Don't most coastal areas have mosquitoes, though? I think you're going to get bugs regardless.
Bugs don't really mess with me too much. I always find friends that bugs like, and then I can eat and stuff like that, and bugs don't mess with me. And I'm not at all joking.
I wonder if there's a correlation between blood type as well. Because I know, when I'm walking with my husband, they will swarm him, and he'd be like, "Are you getting eaten up?" And I'm like, "Heck no." Meanwhile, there's a cloud around his head.
So after service, he went to Hollywood to work as an actor and military technical advisor for feature film and TV, working alongside the likes of Robert Redford and Peter Berg. Utilizing his combat skills, he trained armies in Afghanistan and Nigeria and mentors U.S. Army ROTC cadets, the future officers of the U.S. Army. He is the author of Embedded Enemy, a first-hand account as a survivor of the deadly inside terrorist attack against the 101st Airborne Division by a fellow American soldier. That's wild. Bart has since adapted his book into a screenplay to align with studios and filmmakers to create Embedded Enemy and to make it a feature film. So I can't wait to chat with this guy. He's incredible. And speaking of incredible soldiers, Stacy, you've got the story of a Revolutionary War soldier to share, don't you?
I do. So on this day in 1776, Alphas, Colonel John Nixon gave the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence to an assemblage of citizens in Philadelphia. So, who was Colonel Nixon in the first place? I had no idea, so I went and looked him up. During my research, I found out that he was born in 1727, same year as you, Joe, and he joined the Massachusetts militia in 1755. He fought at the Battle of Lexington and Concord, Bunker Hill, New York and New Jersey campaigns, Battle of Harlem Heights, Saratoga campaign, and the Battle of Bemis Heights, which I'd never heard of Bemis before, but I'm not going to even get down that rabbit hole right now. He rose to the rank of Brigadier General in the Continental Army before a cannonball narrowly missed his head, which impacted his sight and his hearing for the rest of his life. Thankfully, he had already fathered 14 of his kids, so that wasn't impacted. Seems kind of light for the 1700s, having 14 kids, and they aim for 20. At that rate, he resigned in 1780, and in 1784, he became the director of the Bank of North America, the first national bank, serving as the president from 1792 until his death in 1808. Don't forget, American Legion is actively involved in the upcoming United States semi-quincentennial, that's a mouthful, but you can just say America 250, which marks the 250th anniversary of the nation's founding. The America 250 Foundation, formed in support of the congressionally established U.S. Semi-Quincentennial Commission, is looking for American Legion assistance in coordinating national observances. So get your thinking hats on, y'all. It's time to celebrate 250 years of our nation's identity.
And I remember all of it.
I know you did, because you were born in 1727. Have you ever heard of John Nixon?
John Nixon?
Yeah. Not Tricky Dick, but John Nixon.
Was he a straight shooter?
Well, I just shared the story with you. You could just regurgitate it.
I know. I'm just making
He's
another
somebody I'd
euphemism.
never heard of. And I will say that what's kind of fun about this whole semi-quincentennial situation is I've been learning a lot about remarkable American Revolution figures. So
I know that, we're the American Legion, not the French Foreign Legion, but I've been reading up.
what? Hold on.
You didn't know that?
I think I'm part of the wrong organization. Bye, Joe.
Wee. So I've been reading up. I don't even know what started the rabbit hole, but I've been reading up on French spies in World War II.
Yeah.
These ladies were wild. I'm talking, they were able to get stuff done that they had, like, male spies were disappearing left and right, and they send these ladies in, and they're like living and fully embedded. It's so cool. It's so cool to read up on that stuff.
Well, fun fact, there was plenty of women in the U.S. during the American Revolution who were spies, predating those World War II badasses in France. So let's not overlook them.
USA. You can learn more about the American Legion events and activities at legion.org/USA250. And while you mull over how your post can help commemorate our nation's 250th birthday, which is a lot of candles, be careful. Make sure you have a fire extinguisher or one of those blankets or someone you don't care about to put the fire out. We'll be back with Bart Womack after the break.
The American Legion is raising awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide by offering hope, camaraderie, and support.
Be the one to help end veteran suicide.
Be the one to save one veteran.
Be the one to ask a veteran in your life how they're doing.
Be the one to reach out when a veteran is struggling.
Go to betheone.org and help the American Legion end veteran suicide.
Will you be the one?
Today we're joined by Sergeant Major Bart Womack. He's a 29-year-old, no, I'm just joking, 29-year military veteran. Wouldn't that be nice? No, I don't want to be 29. Not anymore. I learned too much. Anyway, 29-year military veteran with an extensive knowledge of film and television. He wrote the screenplay adapted from his book, Embedded Enemy. He's a thought leader, speaker, and specialized consultant in safety and security. Bart, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Thank you for having me, Joe. I'm looking forward to this. It's exciting.
Outstanding.
Me too. Welcome to the show, Bart, and thank you for your service. I see you're from Columbus, Ohio, originally, and the National Veterans Memorial and Museum is in Columbus, Ohio. Have you been yet?
I'm going to say no.
What? We need to get you up there, especially do a book signing or something like that.
I like that.
What's that?
I said I like that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something we got to do. But so during your Army service, that's like 29 years, you had a lot of time to cover a lot of ground, and you did. So you were a drill sergeant, a ranger instructor, a sergeant of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, followed by, and not limited to, serving as the commandant of the Non-Commissioned Officers Academy, and simultaneously the 101st Airborne Division Command Sergeant Major.
Rock star.
So what weren't you doing, I guess, is the better question. Well, in all seriousness, what drew you as a Columbus, Ohioan? What drew you to the Army? And do you have like a most memorable time from your service?
I love telling the story about what drew me to the Army because there was nothing that drew me to the Army. Like you talked about, you were in the Air Force and Joe, you were in the Marines. They weren't there that day when I went into the recruiting office. And how I got to the recruiting office was I was working. So I graduated high school at 17. You know, your parents have to sign. I was raised by a single parent mother. My father died when I was 1. So my mother would have to sign for me. And so I worked. I told myself, okay, I'm not mature enough for college yet. I will work for a year, then I'll go to college a year after graduating high school. So I was working. And my next oldest brother had wrecked the family car, so I had to catch the bus to work. It was a pretty long way, and I had to transfer buses. So in between transfers, I decided this time I'm just going to walk to the transfer point instead of waiting at this point to catch this bus. I'll catch it on my other street. And in doing so, it's November, I think October, but cold in Columbus already, right? And I walked past the recruiting office and said, I'm going to go in here and get warm. They probably have some hot chocolate or something. I wasn't a coffee drinker, but at least I can get warm. The lights are on, right? So I went in, and like I said, there was no other branches there. So I walked straight to the back because, it's the one office that had them all, but everyone else was gone. It's probably 6:30, 7 o'clock, right? PM. And there's the Army guy. And of course, he started talking, give me his spiel and all that. And I listened and everything. My modus operandi is to get warm. His modus operandi is, recruit somebody, right? So I said, I'm 17. He kept talking. He said, you don't want to shine tanks. Like, no. I mean, he kept talking. I left. Then he was calling the house. And this is way, way back. I know you haven't gotten into my age yet, like way back. So no one was doing
like
so.
Rotary dial way back? Or are we talking like taps?
Yeah, it wasn't even tap, rotary. Tap went now. That thing went now. Rotary. Yeah. And so every time he called, my mother went home. I said, well, my mother's not home. She's a decision maker, right? And she wasn't home. I told the truth. Anyway, bottom line, in December, my birthday, my mother said, I finally told her what was going on. She said, you can make a decision yourself. Yeah. So 2 months later, I did. And then in February of the next year, I was off.
You were polishing tanks?
No, I didn't do that. I didn't want to do that. But that's how I got into the military. I knew absolutely nothing. For a career that ended up being an Army Ranger and airborne and all that, I learned about those experiences in basic training. They said airborne, like, what's that? They said jumping out of airplanes. I was like, nope, don't want to do that. Who does that? And then they said it pays $55 extra. Like, me, I'm in.
Well, with inflation now, it's a pretty nice little sum. So
now, and I was getting ready to say it stayed $55 for a very long time. I mean, a very long time. Yeah. Then later came the Ranger thing, but at that time I didn't know anything about the Ranger. And I'm not embarrassed to tell you, the only Ranger I knew was the park ranger of Yogi and Scooby. Yogi and Boo Boo. So I knew nothing about the military. Yeah.
That's really. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was.
No, you're fine, Joe. Go ahead.
I love that you went in so many different directions. Do you feel like, and this isn't really my question, it's just more of a well, I guess it is a question, but do you feel like you went in so many different directions and did so many different things through a desire to just experience so much, or did you just feel, are you just one of those people that's driven to be a part of everything around you in some way?
The drive was there. I didn't know the drive was there. I was 130 pounds, skinny kid. Yeah. I was 5'3" in the 11th grade. Over the summer, I grew. Yeah. I joined, I was 5'9", and still kept going, to 5'10".
What? That's huge.
But
for you, Stacy.
But somewhere in there, something clicked. Probably just like the airborne from the very beginning, doing something like, people would say, I want to go and I want to be airborne, right? I didn't look at it that way. I didn't know how elite it was. I didn't know anything about the 82nd. I didn't know the history. I didn't know anything, right? I knew $55. And, I'd worked ever since I was like 8 or 9 years old, paper route on up, so I knew money and that was more of it. So that was the thing that drove me there. You got to jump. Okay. I learned all this stuff. And I would say one catalyst very early on, a sergeant, when I first got to my first unit, was very, very strapped. He had just missed going to Vietnam based on the age and time he joined, but he was always strapped, boots were shine, all that type of stuff. So you can imagine in the, in 82nd, you got this spit shine boots and all that type of stuff, right? And the jump boots at that. But it's probably that of being the best that you could be, even shining your boots and your uniform and all those types of things. And then, you watch people in the military and you learn that a drill sergeant was the thing. Like, drill sergeant's the thing. Now, I'm just a sergeant. And I ran across one guy who was probably the lasting image that set my path just by trying to emulate him. Even though I wasn't under his leadership, he was in we were in the same company, but he was a different section, all that other stuff, right? But he was an airborne ranger and he was a drill sergeant, so I aspired to be that drill sergeant and I aspired to be that ranger, all just by the way he carried himself and all those things. So the first thing up was drill sergeant. I was a sergeant. I was 23 years old, entering drill sergeant school. So I spent 2 years as a drill sergeant, ages 23, 24, and 25. Now you can't do that at age 23 anymore. But you can imagine I would say, first and foremost, the maturity level that the Army expected. I don't know that they vetted that well, because I don't know that things were asked of me ahead of time. You put in your 4187, the standard stuff that it asked. But I would tell you, after the fact, I don't necessarily know that it was a thorough process of vetting a 23-year-old to be a drill sergeant. But, everything that needed to be put in the officer was put in there, and I was selected, very easy to do that. So, and then after that, in a few years later came the Ranger School thing. So those two decisions were very strategic.
You mentioned, your maturity, and you knew you weren't mature enough to go to college yet. I think we tend to sell ourselves short, and self-awareness is one of the last things I think most guys learn. And the fact that you had enough of it then to say, I'm not ready for this thing, I think speaks volumes. And I think at 23, when you stepped up, you can't even legally rent a car yet, and they got you training, these young bucks that are coming up. And I say young bucks, but in the military, somebody who's 23, 24, there's a noticeable difference in maturity and discipline in someone who's 18 and somebody who's 21. I was bragging about, I was Navy, ended up as a corpsman with 2-1 Marines. So I spent all my time with the Marines, but going through basic, I got to watch our instructors be two different people. They were fathers when they needed to be fathers. When they were teaching men, for all the anger and whatever it is you want to call it, the drill sergeant does, the bluster and the fire and brimstone. There was a time for that, and there was a time to teach men who never had father figures how to shave, and to do it with patience, and it was just being able to see the process during that was, I think, like you said, you ran into people that inspired you. And for me, that was Chief Bruce Ross. When I went in and got to see him be what people needed him to be, and he was mean as a firecracker when he needed to be mean, but he was always had our back. And it's so incredible that you've got a story and you've got someone and you have that moment that you can point to. Because Bart, I'm gonna first name you here because I want you to know you're that for some other people. I'll never forget what it was like to finally know that I had a little bit of respect out of that surly old chief, and to know that there were young men that went through with you. I just want to let you know that you've had such a massive impact on people in your career. And then you do all that and you go to Hollywood. You come out and you're all over the place. You get to, and I just want to say that as a veteran who watches a movie, it drives me crazy when I see someone who's making millions of dollars and they salute like that, or it's like that, and it's like you can see the thumbs, like, what are you doing with that, bud? Like, what's happening over there? And it's like, oh my gosh, how hard is it to just snap? Like, having people like you on set to consult is the dream. That's what we're looking for. So can you tell me a little bit, and the people swinging their rifles around, flagging their entire squad, makes me not want to watch a movie anymore. Can you tell me a little bit about that time, from transitioning out of the military into doing that, and what that experience was like?
Yeah, I will start with the fact that the military set me up. Well, I believe that all the things I was taught and all the things that I did, it gave me the confidence to where I could do anything. And that same kid that walked down those hallways at that school at 5'3" and, barely pushing 100 pounds or whatever until he grew a little bit, didn't have that type of confidence. I played football younger and all those types of things, and it kind of grew, but the military taught me a different level of that. And doing those things that I did, I just did them because I saw that one guy and I wanted to be that. But I had to learn what all those things meant. But in the end, in doing them, it gave me the confidence of where I could do anything. And I would tell you I'm gonna answer your question, but just real quick about the whole drill sergeant thing and all those other positions is that we all go to these same schools, but our takeaway and what we are going to impart is going to be different. Just like our names are going to be different, we'll all stay in that classroom. But then when we come out, how we're going to take that information, create it into knowledge for ourselves, and then impart it on our commands and units is going to be different. And then you're thinking, like, I went to the same school I did, but why is this unit, why is it, why is this like this or jacked or whatever, right? So, and the same thing, when you're platoon sergeant and squad leader and whatever, all these different positions, and a new person comes in, they came out of basic and AIT, and like, in the beginning, I was like, who the hell was your drill sergeant? Because he screwed up. I'm going to see him. He screwed up. And those dudes were 23 and 24 years old, right? Like, what the heck were they doing where you are like this? Anyway, I digress. My point about taking that Army knowledge and confidence, I made that transition to do that because I knew that I could do it. It gave me the confidence that I could go do anything, right? Now, I trained myself as an actor. I didn't train myself. I went to school, to be trained. I went to acting classes in Nashville before I got out. So that was a plan. You don't just jump out there and say, hey, I'm gonna. Don't work like that. So I was trained for that. So when I hit the ground, I just hit the ground running. And I looked at the technical advising, and then I'm just advising or I'm consulting, right? It's the same thing with the general or with the colonel or whatever. I'm just advising. I'm giving them advice based on this command, based on my experience, based on my knowledge and all those things. In some cases, they can take it or leave it, and when I don't want them to leave it, I just keep pushing it until they take it. But it's the same thing in Hollywood to me as an advisor or consultant. The difference is it's a director or maybe it's a producer, right? Now you have this huge component in this kind of tug of war sometimes of the real versus the real. I bring the REAL, as you spoke of, versus the REEL. Now, only I back up REAL. In Hollywood, that can mean nothing, depending on how much authenticity they want. But millions of dollars back up the REEL. Yeah. So a lot of times you might not win, but you have to kind of pick your fights from the very beginning. You pick up the script and you read it, like, where are you trying to go with this? You have to have conversations, to figure out, is this something you want to do? Because at the end of the day, you can choose to do it anyway because of the money. They're going to pay you, right? And then you hope that the audience understands that it's just, they don't understand what I'm telling you right now. They don't know that part. Or you can say, I don't want my name on this stuff. I mean, I've read a script where a guy had a whole tactical operations center in a Black Hawk helicopter. And I said, okay, no, that ain't going to work. You either get a plane or you just get rid of the whole TOC thing.
Sign language.
One or the other. But that's the REAL for the REEL. And you have to have a director that understands that. Some of them do and some of them don't. Now, I worked on one film with Robert Redford, and I remember he wanted the REAL, which made my job easy. And it's kind of funny. That's why I started with, it's just like advising a general, right? I'm going to tell you my point. You can take it or leave it. But I'm not going to not tell you just because your name is whatever, or just because you have stars. That's ridiculous to me. But some people wouldn't even approach him. But I'm just going to tell you the way it is. You can take it or leave it. But if he wants to REAL, then he's going to take it. I remember we shot something and then he cut. And I would always position myself with the director, no matter who it is, because he's looking at monitors, and whatever is on that monitor, I don't care if it's the first take or the 20th take, eventually you're going to see it on your screen at home or the silver screen, right? So I position myself right where they are. One of those takes is going to work. And I remember when they cut, and I was like, oh, that's no good. I'm saying that's no good. Like, from my perspective, and what I'm looking at for the military part, it was no good. But then I had to explain to him why. Oh, okay, we need to shoot again. But you have to, I guess, and they didn't do like a big old background thing on me and all that type of stuff. But if you present yourself like you do, then you do. Yeah. Now here's some of the things that you see to get all jacked up. Sometimes they hire a person that knows absolutely nothing. It's someone, so served in the military, but has a technical advisor? No, but he's in the military. Well, just because you're in the military doesn't mean you know everything about the military or even that branch. You know what I mean? So that's one way to do it. Next way, they'll choose somebody and they'll cut them loose before, let's say parts of the movie is in combat and the other part is in garrison. They figure they got the garrison part. Why? Because they've watched enough movies. They've seen the uniforms. They know what it looks like. So they don't want to pay you for that time period because they figure someone in our production that's seen it enough times, oh, we got that part. And then you see it looks like crap. Then the beret's all crooked and all jacked up. You know, I can name some movies because the technical advisor wasn't even there. You get that, right? Or they're there, but they're done the shooting and they've done several takes, but which take is going to be the one? Like I said, I'm right by, they're looking at all of them. But if they cut you loose in post, then it's the director making the pick. And you're not around to say, not that one because of X. Mm-hmm. And then you have the one where you see it, man, that was spot on because that technical advisor was there from pre-production all the way through production. So that's what you kind of get. And that's why some of them kind of look okay and some of them don't.
That's going to be challenging too, because if for the example that you used where, in the barracks, they may not have you, but they want to save you for a combat scene or something like that. Your name's still going to be in the byline as a contributor. And so people are going to look at you and be like, that guy doesn't know his ass from an elbow. That's got to be unfortunate. Like
it is because it is part of the job and you did your part. They doesn't know what part you did because your name's still there as a technician. Yeah. So you got to pick and choose. You know the show, I don't know if it's still on now. I call them the Howie Mellon Dale girls, the Deal or No Deal. Remember that show, Deal or No Deal?
Yeah.
It goes at the suitcase. So I was called to, the banker is like, the banker is a jokester, a prankster. He don't care about nobody. If you're fat, he's going to call you fat. If you're skinny, he's going to call you that. If it is, he'll just mess over you to get your mindset off so that you'll pick the wrong suitcase or quit or take the money or whatever, right? That's his job. So I was called they wanted to do a thing where they had a drill sergeant, they said, and I would call cadence and there would be two of I call them Howie Mondale girls beside me. The banker was always up high and would be right up under that. And I would sing cadence. And they had a contestant that was an Army wife. Her husband was deployed. And they sent me the script. This is 2007. And when they sent the script, right after that, they had the writer's strike. So here's the case. I never forget this. The script. Hey, Shaniqua, get a life, you dumb, stupid little Army wife. You cook and clean just like a maid. Why don't you get a job and get real pay? Now, you know how Kane's work. I seen the girl sing, right? So I'm like, okay, this writer knows nothing about the military. I had been out for a year, and I'm thinking, this is not going to fly with the Army wives I know, right? I'm not married, but I know a whole bunch of them. This ain't going to fly with no military wife. They don't give a darn about the banker being a jokester and all that type of stuff. This ain't going to work. So I politely, you try to appease the writers, right? So I used to write my own case to sing, especially when I was a drill sergeant. So I changed it. Sound right? And the producer says, oh, I love this. Thank you so much or whatever, but they're on strike or whatever. This was approved by the budget and blah, 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 blah. I understand how you feel, how this can do whatever to the military and how all that stuff, right? But we can't change it. So you can, I understand how you feel. You can do it or not do it. So I didn't do it. And it's a huge payday.
Yeah.
It's a huge payday. So
more than $55, right?
Huh?
It was more than $55, right?
Yeah, way more than $55. But I didn't do it. They said, well, we just, you can get in, get anybody. Now, having said that, I probably know a whole bunch of people that I was working with in Hollywood that would have took that in a minute, just because it was paying, national exposure, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't care about, the outcome or whatever. So I wasn't going to do it. I stopped watching the show.
Yeah, I wonder when they went ahead and did it like idiots, how much of a blowback did their viewership get? Like, because Army wives, they're a tough crowd.
And
They're not fearsome crowd, I suppose, is the word I'm looking for. Fearsome.
And this is how even military can be, how they can pay in real quick. Money, they just talk about money being the root of all evil, and exposure and all those types of things that will flip a person in a heartbeat. We were talking about the values and all those types of things, saluting the flag and taking the oath. Okay, that's great out in front of everybody, but what's on the inside? Are they really, really real? Are you really living the values? I'm going to say not everybody, not even close, not even close. So bottom line here, the Army was in on it because they said, well, it gives us exposure. It's free marketing, right? They ain't caring about the wife in that regard. They bought
It's kind of reflective of the Army's opinion on spouses anyway.
The husband was coming back, so they had him do a guest appearance or whatever. Some 3-star was there to present a coin and all that type of stuff. And she was going to win like $400,000, and that all that dialogue was for her to say no or whatever. The bank was trying to get you not to take the money. Anyway, and I think she ended up winning like $400,000.
Oh, good for her.
At a minimum. So anyway, but they were in on it just because of the publicity.
So you talked about people's moral compass, and I want to take a veer off topic really quick and ask you about your association with, or your direct co-founding of the Armed Forces Equestrian Center. As a horse person, I have 6 horses and 4 donkeys of my own, and they are instrumental in the sustainability of my mental health and well-being. And I'm curious, did horses or equine therapy have any part in your personal life? What way? Like, what was the whole genesis of the Armed Forces Equestrian Center? What does it do? What's its purpose?
Yeah, I kind of laughed there while you were talking, because you talked about the 4 donkeys and almost went there, but I'm glad I didn't. Anyway, I've always liked horses myself. I didn't know at the time when I first got into horses their effect on me. I just knew I like them, and they draw on people very, very quickly just by being there. I would probably say, I got involved for those reasons, to help other people, but by being around them all the time, like, one thing, you don't get to ride, which is no fun because you're prepping a horse, you're doing all the stuff that you have to do with and for a horse, and for the potential client. But being around them, I would say that is therapeutic in and of itself. Whether you're going through the actual program or not, you're prepping the horse, you're prepping, the client and all those things in the program. So you're kind of going through it each and every time yourself. But I remember days where, even if we wasn't going through the program with people, that, you're mucking stalls and you're doing all this stuff, and like all day long, from like 9 to 9 in the summertime. And you end it tired and say, that was fun. I don't know how many times I said that was fun. Like, you you scoop poop all day long, and that was fun. And, but it's more satisfying that you did something for an animal that can't do those things themselves. You made everything cover for them. You clean the stall and you put down, new sawdust, all kinds of stuff. Everything is pristine. And you really don't want to put them back in there. And what do they do as soon as they get back in there? Poop and pee. Oh, thank you.
Bart, every 2 hours. Every 2 hours that'll happen.
Oh, okay. But it's very, very rewarding to do something like that and then see the effect that the horse has on other people, especially in the beginning when they don't know what the horse can do until they spend time around it, even if they're afraid of it. And we would have minis too, because it could be a 280-pound, 6'7" man, that trying to destroy other men, but that 1-ton animal is bigger than him. It's like, oh, I'm scared of him. So you bring out the little, you bring out the mini that does the same thing. You're not even a pony, just a mini. But they think because I can probably pick that up, then then they're willing to kind of touch that and do stuff with that. The horse is going to react the same way.
I agree. There's something about the horses being a herd animal that they tend to sync with each other on a heart rhythmic level, energy level, emotional level, and it's so impressive how a horse can bring you into their sphere and bring you down to their calmed level. Unless they're an Arabian, they're just crazy anyway. So, rule of thumb: don't have Arabians in your program unless they're like 30 years old. I get off topic.
Is that like one of those Facebook things where you're like, what kind of horse are you? I would be an Arabian, probably.
I think, oh gosh, Joe, I think you'd be like a Tennessee Walker.
Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, you already told Bart what you thought of him earlier.
But Bart knows what I'm talking about. He instantly went to all the videos that he's seen on Tennessee Walkers and the ones he's seen in person. Joe, you'll have to YouTube some videos of Tennessee Walkers. They're fancy.
Yeah, good ride.
Bart, if you were an equid, what breed or species would you be?
I don't know if I know him enough for that.
Stacy would be a Brabant.
I would be a Brabant, I think. Definitely. A big old draft horse.
Yeah, I mean, there was an Arabian that and this dude was probably how old? A yearling. And huge, beautiful. But it was calm. I mean, you could do everything with him. I never rode him, but you could do everything with him. So I think I would be that Arabian.
Okay.
I think I would be that Arabian because he loved people and everything. It was just different for sure.
The exception, not the rule.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Got it.
So in addition to all the cool horse stuff that I barely understand, you've also mentored ROTC cadets and served with some veteran-focused organizations. And my question is this: I think we're finally at a generation now. Back in all we heard growing up was back in my day, and I think we're at a point now where we can admit that these kids have got it a little tougher than we did in a lot of ways. And I want to ask, with all the distractions and confusions in the world, what additional challenges do you think our youth are facing today on your end, and what seems to work best to help develop and build this new generation up?
Oh.
I know that's a big question, and I hope.
Yeah, the latter is a very long one. Definitely a follow up. I would say, do they have it hard? I had to think about that when you said that. It's harder in regards to, the military is always a byproduct of society.
Yeah.
That's all they have to choose from with no draft, right? I guess if we had a draft, it could be even worse of society because now you're getting them all. We think that we're getting the ones that understand what the culture is going to be, at least are open to our values and learning about them, and ready to establish them, lead by them, and all those things. That's always the hope. Does it catch on? I don't know if it always catches on. We can look at what's happening in society, and I think note of who we're getting. They are a part of that. But how do we break some of the things in society out of them and get them into the military part. I would say that part is harder now than it was, especially when I came in. And I would argue when both of you came in, and just like them, it just the stories and the influence is more separated and further apart from this generation joining the military than it was, especially with mine.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit older than you guys, a couple of months. But the society makeup was completely different. And then our forefathers were different. More of them had served, so we heard about that. And as a result, some values of some type were imparted on us. Now, we still had to live them and do them, but we heard about them a lot, of what not to do and what to do and all that type of stuff. In society nowadays, I'm not saying they don't hear, but it's different. I didn't have the outside, look, I had a dial phone, right? So I didn't have the outside influence of social media and all those types of things that can shape someone. So in that regard, I agree with you that it's harder for them. And the military is trying to figure out how to leverage the social media piece for all, but the influence of it is very, very strong. Where, when I was in, you didn't have that. Now, maybe the sergeant went home and got into something else or whatever, based on who they hung out with, or, with some of their friends, civilians, and they got into something that was wrong or whatever. I know you had that, but now you still have that on a different level, and you have whatever's coming off of social media, good, bad, right, or wrong. So it does make it tougher. But, when I'm talking to cadets or people in the military as a whole, I do it from, not as if I don't know what's happening in their world, but I harp on those things that work for us, that are transferable in any army or in any military. I can come talk to Marines and tell them the same thing. I can talk to the Air Force, tell them the same thing. It may slip out, in the Army we did, that might happen, but for the most part, the structure and the leadership, that shouldn't change. I should be able to walk into the Air Force unit and do the same thing. I'm just have on a blue uniform. I walk in the Marine Corps, do the same thing. Instead of saying who, I'll say oorah. But aside from that, the leadership part ain't going to change. Those Marines are going to understand what I'm talking about. So therefore, I think everything that, when I'm talking to those groups about leadership and, more importantly, people, I don't think that changes.
I guess I should clarify my point in saying that when we grew up, and this is, I say we, I mean, I'm 44, but I feel like, Stacy and I got to see the old world before technology, and then we got to watch it shift. And now we're in this world where technology is everywhere. But so many of us grew up getting in fights and crashing your bike into a tree, and all the things where you learn a lot about who you are, ending up in somebody's yard with a dog that you think might kill you. All these little things, these little moments, these dumb things that we did as kids, getting chased out of a junkyard or whatever it is you did, you figure out a lot about yourself. And I feel like there's so many kids that don't get to do that. They're, and this world, it's so easy to be entertained. I mean, I remember when I got my Genesis, and I was a scrawny little kid. I got a little Sega Genesis. I got my Nintendo, and I would have played those things for 10 hours. And luckily, I had a mom that stopped me from doing that. And I'm not trying to do the old man kids playing video games. I love video games, but I was able to figure out a lot about who I was before I went in. And I think that outside of sports or in an unfortunate situations in a lot of ways, I think a lot of people go into the military to find themselves instead of because they realize that's who they want to be. Not everybody sees. I didn't have anyone that made me go, I want to join the military. But I had a pretty decent idea that I needed to change something. I knew that what I had, my opportunities that I could build in the world that I lived in before I went in were not going to be enough for me. And I wanted to touch the world. I wanted to be a part of something bigger. And so I guess my point there, and you don't have to clarify because I agree with what you said, but I just wanted to clarify my point. When I say that it's harder for them, I don't think the world in and of itself necessarily is harder. I think there are more distractions, and because of that, there are less opportunities. I mean, my last example, my only example I'll really give here is sitting waiting on the bus. How many times did you sit there for 30, 40 minutes and there's nothing to do but just sit there and be in your own head and to sit there and be present in that moment? And nobody has to do that ever again. And I feel like you should be able to do that. I feel like you should be able to sit into a room. I think you should be able to go to the restroom, and I'm as guilty as anybody, without your phone. And I think that you lose the ability to figure out who you are when you can't do that anymore.
No, I agree with you. And that makes it harder.
Yeah.
I think they also struggle with, an identity, like who they want to be, because there's so many influence of what to be.
Yeah.
And to have a mentor, have someone to guide. If it comes from your parents, great. If it's a directed outside influence, great, meaning that someone has approved, or dad said go see that person, or mom said go see that person, versus the unfortunate circumstance of someone choosing a person that they shouldn't be, following. So, but that all of that makes it tougher.
And luckily we got men like you, and I know that's uncomfortable. But I think that it should always be uncomfortable when people tell us thank you for your service, and to say thank you for who you are and what you do. And I've had to work very hard to just say thank you instead of undermining myself, like I tend to do, to say, I was lucky to be where I am. And really, it's been a lot of hard work and a fantastic support system, and a good foundation. And a lot of that was built up in the military. I had a better than most experience growing up. My mom was always there. I always had a father figure. But there's a lot of people who don't. And I've been very lucky and blessed, but I had to sort of learn how to just say thank you when people say that I've done something that means something to them. I don't want to undermine the experience they got. And if somebody can build up a version of me that they want to aspire to be, then why would I take that away from someone? All that does is put pressure on me to stay the course, to stay strong, to be faithful, to continue to push, so that someone doesn't have this idea of me that they want. If they see in me what you saw in that drill sergeant, if that's what people see in me, then that just means I need to work hard and earn that.
Yeah, I think I had 3 evolutions of the thank you. The first one was like, you don't know who I am, why are you thanking me? I always say it to myself. Like, what have I done? You don't know anything, but okay. And then the second one was, I'm accepting this. And again, I didn't tell them that. I'm accepting this on behalf of the Vietnam veterans who that society spat on. And I was proud to accept it for them. So when I'm talking to them, when I'm in a room with them, I always kind of bring up, something like that. And I'm always sure to thank them because they can't be thanked enough for what that generation went through for their service. And then it became, okay, I'm accepting it because I don't know what it even took for that person to say those words. Because not everybody's doing it. Not everybody's doing it,
Yeah.
but enough of them are. And they know that they don't know. And is it a cliche? I don't know. But, like I said, I accept it because they had enough gumption to get it out of their mouth. And how good of them for doing so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'm truly humbled by it or anything. They still don't know me. They just hear that I served and they thank me, and I accept it really for them.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate your time, Bart, and for all you've shared with us. And Alphas, I want you to be sure to check out Bart's book, Embedded Enemy. He's also adapted that to be a movie. Be sure to check out bartwomack.com, BARTWOMACK.com, to learn more about that. We're going to have that link in our show notes, so please don't drive and look up that show right now. But we'll also have the social media links right alongside that in the show notes as well. Before we wrap it on up with a nice tidy bow, Bart, is there anything that you'd like to share with the Alphas who are listening that we haven't covered?
Yeah, we didn't get into it, but in that story in the book, soldiers were killed by a fellow American soldier that was a radicalized extremist. And he planned that out. We learned in the trial that he wrote things in his diary, being against the United States of America, and planned out that attack. You won't see that particular part in the book, but I'm fighting for those victims, which 2 were killed and 13 wounded, to receive the Purple Heart Medal. So if you want to know more about that, you can have the links from my LinkedIn there. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's figure out a process to be able to get them awarded the Purple Heart Medal.
Now, pushing for other people, that's beautiful. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for visiting us today.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Alphas, please stick around for some scuttlebutt after the break.
Selfless service.
The American Legion celebrates all who contribute to something larger than themselves.
And inspires others to serve and strengthen America. We are veterans strengthening America. We are the American Legion.
Okay, Alphas, we hope you had a great break and you thought about some of those great 250th anniversary birthday celebration thoughts and ideas. But now we've got some scuttlebutt for you.
So, the United States, you might have heard of it.
What?
It's not the French Foreign Legion, believe it or not. But the United States announced that it is preparing a partial evacuation of its embassy in Iraq and has authorized the voluntary departure of dependents of American personnel from locations across the Middle East, including Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates, as regional security concerns rise, according to an Al Jazeera article. U.S. President Donald Trump explained that the decision to relocate staff was made because the region could be a dangerous place. That's a true statement.
I think it's not to carpet bomb or blanket or anyway, I don't want to lump everybody into the same thing, but that has generally been the case for quite some time now.
Yeah.
Not to state the obvious.
And tensions have been rising, fueled by stalled negotiations between the U.S. and Iran over its nuclear program, further inflamed by Israel's repeated statements that it is prepared to launch a strike on Iran. And
again, what's new though?
See, I mean, that's exactly my point. And I'm not saying that things aren't. The people that are drumming up a lot of this fear and stuff that's happening right now, and I'm not saying that things aren't happening, because they absolutely are, but I don't think that people realize that what is at work right now is that admittedly slightly inflated defense budget. As much as people don't like to admit it, people will talk an awful lot before they draw the U.S. into anything that they're doing, because whether we win or lose, we wreck the hotel room on our way out. I mean, that's just what we do as Americans. And so, I think that we are not at a point yet where people are worried that we're going to get drawn into a war. Maybe I'm optimistic, but I feel like we're just not there yet. Maybe pulling people out of Iran right now. I could see where that's coming from.
I think equating us to an 80s hairband is pretty smart. An 80s hairband in a hotel.
That's exactly what we are.
Yeah.
You might beat us, but you won't brag about it. You're not going to be able to rent that room out. There's feces on the walls.
Or at least substances you can't identify.
That's right. You don't know what we've done in that room, and we're never going to tell you exactly what we did either. But some things have happened.
I'm a dark smear on the carpet for sure.
I'm a white one.
Yeah, Joe, you're cut off.
I meant drugs. I don't do drugs.
So what else is happening?
So the U.S. has operated military bases in the Middle East for decades. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, the U.S. operates a broad network of military sites, both permanent and temporary, across at least 19 locations in the Legion. Of these, 8 are permanent bases located across Bahrain, Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. And the U.S. first deployment of soldiers in the Middle East was all the way back in July 1958, which you remember, Stacy.
I do. I was there. It was hot.
It was so hot. That's a good statement. Anytime you're in the Middle East,
It felt like my head in the oven.
So hot. It felt like somebody was blowing a hair dryer. It felt like me
Milk
fixing
was
my
a
hair
bad
every
choice.
morning. It was bad. Combat troops were sent to Beirut during the Lebanon crisis. At its height, there were almost 15,000 Marines and Army troops in Lebanon, which means it was probably like 400 Marines.
True.
But they probably
the Marines,
did just
did
as
the
much.
Marines even have 15,000 personnel?
I don't know that they did. But as of mid-2025, there are about 40 to 50,000 U.S. troops in the Middle East, comprising personnel stationed in both large permanent bases and smaller forward sites across the region. Right now, the countries with the most U.S. troops include Qatar, Bahrain, the lost city of Atlantis, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia.
Saudi.
Saudi.
Them Saudi Arabies.
I've been distracted since I said nuclear because I'm wondering if I said nuclear.
Wouldn't be prudent.
These installments serve as critical hubs for air and naval operations, regional logistics, intelligence gathering, and force projection.
Well, I mean,
is what I do
to
because
be
I'm
honest,
insecure.
a lot of these bases, or at least the small contingent ones, are just like launching points. You need them if you're going to have a quick reaction force of some type. And I think that that's where our military strategy has been really rooted in over the last arguably 20, 30 years. And so maybe this is a way to, maybe they're trying to see if they scale back, will it impact our reaction force? I don't, in this day and age, I don't know. Let me piggyback off that, Joe, because a Navy destroyer and multiple ground-based air defense systems took part intercepting Iranian missiles fired on Israel in June. Additionally, the Navy is moving another destroyer to the Middle East in response to the ongoing fight between Israel and Iran, and as missile attacks and airstrikes from the two countries continue for a third day. It's funny that they're scaling back on bases, but they're amping up on ships. I wonder if that says anything. American ground and sea and air assets are participating in an anti-air defense operations in the Middle East, according to reports from the Associated Press and the Wall Street Journal. The destroyer involved was not identified, but the U.S. military has several ships in the region. Those include the aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson and its carrier strike group, currently in the waters around the Middle East. Isn't there only one Middle East? How could you be around it? And isn't the Middle East like more of a, isn't it like a triangle shape? Forgive my geography. It's been a while, but I was literally there once, and I do remember it being that way. That strike group has been there since May, when it joined the ongoing military operations against the Houthis. Is that how you say it? Houthis? Houthis.
I would have said Houthis.
The Houthis. Additionally, the Associated Press, citing multiple defense officials, noted that the U.S. Army ground-based air defense systems took part in a missile interceptions over the weekend. The U.S. Army has Patriot missile batteries in the Middle East, including in Iraq. I didn't realize that. A terminal high-altitude air defense, or THAAD system, which was deployed to Israel in October 24, along with dozens of soldiers to operate it. The Wall Street Journal reported that several U.S. fighter jets also took part in anti-air operations. Sounds like things are busy over there. Why are we scaling back bases again? This seems counterintuitive.
Well, you see, there's the Middle East, there's the East, there's the West East.
And the Near East, and the Midwest. The Navy is moving the USS Thomas Hudner in Arleigh Burke class. Wow, that's a mouthful. You Navy folks.
Arleigh Burke, yeah.
I know some Navy alphas out there are going to be like, that's not how you say it. Please feel free to correct me. I will provide you the email at the end of the show. An Arleigh class guided missile destroyer to the eastern Mediterranean. The destroyer was operating in the Atlantic Ocean, including taking part in an exercise with partners' forces. The ship previously took part in earlier months of missile interception fights against the Houthi forces in the Red Sea in 2023 before it returned to port in January 24. Fighting between Israel and Iran broke out on June 13th after Israelis carried out several airstrikes around Iran, including the capital, Tehran, targeting several high-ranking military members and figures in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. The two have since exchanged several barrages of attacks. Again, I feel like this is status quo. Anyway, Iran having launched approximately 200 missiles and as many drones. Both nations have been successfully hit by one another. No shit. Israel and Iran had previously engaged in brief fighting last year and the year before and the year before and the year before, with American ground, sea, and air base forces taking part in efforts to shoot down Iranian missiles and drones before they could hit Israel. I'm not sure that that part's been repetitive. Beyond the U.S. military's established bases in the region, the Pentagon has several additional Air Force and Navy assets in and around the Middle East that were sent as part of Operation Rough Rider. That's the first time I've ever heard this. The name for the fight against the Houthis that wrapped up in May. But if it wrapped up in May, why are we still talking about it in July?
Well, because they can make money off of.
True.
So I'll say that part of the reason why the U.S. has not always been involved in shooting down missiles and stuff, it's not an offensive action, it's a defensive action, which there's a huge difference. We're not dropping bombs on anyone, and I don't know, I'm not even saying this is the right or wrong answer. I'm just to clarify a point. The Iron Curtain only works on certain types of attacks, and the Iranians have figured out how to work around it. So that's why the U.S. is involved, is because the Iron Curtain can't do what what it's famously done for however long it's been around with the types of attacks. And I'm sure that it's just like anything, like with Norton antivirus, they're going to figure out a way to fix it, and then they're going to come up with new attacks, and they're going to have a way to fix that. And it's just a thing that's been going on for a couple of thousand years. And unfortunately, I don't see a end in sight, because I don't think either side is negotiating in true faith.
What do you think a 2,000-year-old Iron Curtain was? It's just a big palisade?
I think it was praying then. I think then it was just like, Lord,
please don't hit me with your slingshot and rocks.
Dude, those things are no joke, though. There was they found animals and stuff like that in the Middle East that they found like a human, like a human or Neanderthal. I don't want to, I know that there is a difference. I just don't know exactly what they're different. But they did find a humanoid with a hole in the center of its head. I'm not talking about Goliath, but I'm saying that they now know that people have been using slings in combat for so long. And I mean, the person that they found, or the skull that they found, is like thousands of years old. So
I believe it. I mean, that's got to be
a hole in a skull. That's legit.
I mean, I would pick out some sharp-edged rocks to defend myself if it called down to it. Even today, there are plenty of rocks in my driveway.
You could just, it's like a battle, like, she's got infinite ammo. Where's she getting?
She's got cargo pockets chock full of rocks. Run for your lives.
Careful, she's wearing her cargos.
She's got the satchel full of rocks.
Is that a saddlebag? Oh, we're screwed.
Oh man, she's wearing the fanny pack.
Oh, you silly geese.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we can laugh after such a dark,
In other news, happy birthday, America.
Nah, you look really good for 250.
I don't know what voice that
is. He's a Yanko-Doodle Dandy. Take us out, Joe.
You see the macaroni in my hat? All right, Alphas, thanks for listening. You can subscribe to our podcast, our newsletter, or send us mail and guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. Hey, share with us what your plans are to celebrate America's semi-quincentennial while you're at it.
You did it. So you are a Yankee Doodle with
I'm a
with
dad.
a noodle between the ears.
We'll see you weirdos next week. We love you.